So there's a bit of update in regards to the Tesla Cybertruck attack, the New Orleans attack. There's been a growing conspiracy. People are starting to question things. I've been questioning things because the whole thing just is suspicious. The whole thing just smells and reeks of some sort of FBI plot, some sort of initiative to exploit people, to fearmonger people, whether it being to get into war with Iran. I don't know about that, but there's got to be something afoot because this just seems all too crazy. And here is Ian Carroll, who does these wonderful deep dives. We should get him on the show here, get in contact with him, because he does these really great deep dives of scenarios like this, and he's going to show you here, of this Tesla truck bomber that was at the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, how it seems to be going up in flames as this big giant psyop that people are waking up to. So listen to this.
So the Tesla Cybertruck car bombing in Las Vegas has turned into the craziest reverse psyop story ever. And it's still developing, but I'm going to run through all of the evidence in all directions that I have found so far, so hopefully it's easy to kind of pick up where we're at right now and see what comes next. First thing, super iconic, not an accident. But the question is, not an accident, why? And who's actually behind it? Because the media is pinning everything on Matthew Allen Livelsberger because they found his passport and his ID and a bunch of stuff of his in the car. Though the car blew up, passports always survive. And he's an active duty Green Beret that's been stationed mostly out of Germany and Colorado. And the Green Beret community is digging into this deep and getting sources. And there's so much that's not adding up. And then yesterday, I think it was, the plot super duper thickened when the Sean Ryan show had this whole expose on this whistleblower scenario where he had Sam Shoemate on, who had apparently gotten an email from this Green Beret dude the day before the bombing. And the email is crazy spicy, but it's a little suspicious. If you haven't seen the Sean Ryan Show podcast episode yet, you should watch at least the first 30 to 45 minutes. Put it on 2 times speed. You should not believe everything that is said at face value. Remember, both these guys are military intelligence assets, former and current. This is the alleged email that Mr. Shoemate received. But notice that there are spell check red squigglies in here. And there's a cursor. And we've learned this before. This is not how an email appears when it is received in your inbox. This is how an email appears when you're typing it. But this is what the Sean Ryan Show put out as the email that was received, allegedly. And it alleges that the drones over the East Coast are Chinese tech and that they could bomb the White House at any minute. And it's like this whole, basically it alleges that World War III is about to happen between the US and China and there's nothing we can do to stop it. And he's like trying to be a whistleblower to stop it. But if this email is real, it's like the perfect food for the military-industrial complex and for World War III warmongering. But it gets weirder. So the Las Vegas officials and the FBI, who are totally trustworthy, have been assessing the scene. Hey, Gigi, don't do that. Stay over there. That's where they found the passport. They also found an incinerated Desert Eagle, which apparently he used to shoot himself in the head before the explosion. It was dropped on the floor right in between his feet in the driver's seat. And if you know anything about how powerful these guns are, and you imagine shooting yourself in the head with it and then it dropping straight down instead of just flying into the not to mention that no one has reported any report from a gunshot in the car at the scene at the time, and that is the most powerful handgun you can buy. A whole conspiracy on this thread is Teslas can drive themselves. And I don't know if anyone's ever tested the self-driving because it'll watch you. And if you don't look upwards, it'll tell you to look or it'll stop the self-driving. So you can't just look down at your phone or close your eyes and go to sleep. But has anyone ever tried it with a dead body that has its eyes open? Because that is probably possible. It's unclear. Because allegedly the remains of the person found in the front seat, though charred, burnt beyond recognition, the DNA did not match the DNA of this guy's recent child. Apparently his wife just broke up with him and they were trying to paint that as he's angry. It's Green Berets get divorces all the time. Maybe the kid wasn't his kid. I think it's more likely that the body wasn't his body. Because again, in the email that was allegedly sent by him, theoretically, it's very clear that he's not planning to kill himself. He's planning to escape to Mexico and to do this whole thing in order to bring attention to this and to whistleblow and to be taken seriously and to get this out to as much news and publicity as possible and then escape to Mexico. He says it 2 different times in this email. The trunk was loaded up with all these crazy fireworks, and there was some gas cans in the cab that caused the explosion to it's a little unclear. But it seems like the explosion was intended to not cause a bunch of death, but just to cause a scene. Like, he chose his Cybertruck, which is bulletproof, like the worst car to build a car bomb in. And then he filled it with fireworks instead of he's a Green Beret. He could have built a real high, power IED that could have blown the building up, theoretically. And then he says in the letter that he's trying to keep a low profile because he's being followed and they attempted to abduct him, but also that he's trying to keep a high profile because they know he has this IED, this car bomb rigged up. And so he got a Cybertruck, which is why would you get a Cybertruck? The police have had no trouble tracking the Cybertruck, both in Las Vegas on CCTV footage and on its supercharger route across the country. The police said that they have tracked the purchase of the firearm, specifically the Desert Eagle, back in Colorado. There's a 3-day wait on purchasing a firearm in Colorado, so we had to have initiated the purchase 3 days before leaving Colorado to come to Las Vegas for this event. But then in the email, he gives, as confirmation that he is who he says he is. First off, I'm not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. Well, people verified. People pulled his vehicle records, and actually he has never owned a 1996, was it? Ford Mustang, or a 2006 Ford Mustang, but his first car was a Ford Mustang, just totally different year. So it's not really could be that because it's 30 years ago, it's his own car 20 years ago and he just forgot the year. It could be why would you put the wrong verification in? You'd think if it was someone else faking the letter, they would get the right verification because they wanted it to get verified. You think if it was him, maybe he misremembered it, maybe it's an intentional misverification. People are oh, maybe it was in his parents' name because everyone's first cars are in their parents' name. Well, people pulled his parents' car records too. Check out Landry22 if you want to see those on X. But then the Las Vegas police, the officials, released manifestos that they found on his phone, which was charred to oblivion. But they found these manifestos that this one is basically yo, all military personnel, go and take the Capitol right now. It's really unhinged and retarded. And the other one, it's just screenshot and read if you want. The other one is just so weird. Then they released video from his Tesla Cybertruck at the supercharge station that they said was in Las Vegas, but the internet has sleuthed around and pretty much confirmed that actually that was not in Las Vegas. It was in Arizona because there's a Carl's Jr. Next to the supercharge station. They were looking for photos where there's a supercharge station and a Carl's Jr. and it's in Kingman, Arizona, which is that stop right there before getting to Las Vegas. Plus the Green Beret chatter on YouTube and X and everyone in the Green Beret and Special Forces communities that are commenting on this saying it does not line up at all. He did not have the expertise to understand this kind of stuff about drones. He did not have the clearance. He wasn't even stationed in the places where they said he was stationed. It's all very sus. Not to mention that he was a TV star with Tim Kennedy 10 years ago on some Special Forces game show, TV show. Whole other funny rabbit hole. But a bunch of guys know this guy. A bunch of people on the internet right now have done operations and missions with him or trained with him or been stationed with him. So there's a lot floating around. And I don't have any answers. I don't know what's going on. But one thing that we can all agree on is that if the evidence starts pointing towards a war with China or a war with Iran or a war with Russia, it's probably the deep state setting you up for that war.
So that's pretty interesting take. That was Ian Carroll breaking it down there. I didn't even know about him being a TV star. That's surprisingly wild. A Green Beret who's a television star. Oh my God. But as I stated, it just seems way too suspicious. The fact that the military connections, he brought a Cybertruck in. He bought the gun from Colorado, which he had to wait 3 days and then bring that in. He somehow is a military man that works with, operations within the military, knows how to conduct actual bomb-making material, but yet he used fireworks in a Cybertruck, which a Cybertruck is made of stainless steel. And it did not explode in the intention that maybe he thought he was going to do. All this just seems way too suspicious. All this seems way too suspicious. Same with the New Orleans case. Same thing. Military man who bought a rental vehicle, drove through the French Quarter, had this manifesto already prepared. There was already an identification. Even though the car was completely destroyed, he was shot down by police. The New York Post investigated his house. That was very suspicious. So the whole thing was just absolutely crazy. The whole thing is just absolutely crazy, very suspicious, and no doubt, like Ian Carroll says, does this maybe coordinate into some sort of nefarious plot to fearmonger people into the next war? Because how many times have we seen that before, folks? How many times have we seen that? Even going back as far back as 9/11. Like, that was kind of the fear-mongering amp up to eventually get us into Iraq and Afghanistan, was to use that as the scenario to scare people. Well, you don't want another 9/11, so we got to go over there and attack. We got to fight back our freedom. So, could that be the case? Could that be the case? Considering the fact that one of the terrorist attacks that happened on New Year's Day, they already linked it to ISIS. So, it definitely seems like some sort of trope. It definitely seems some sort of deep state insider kind of psyoptic motive that was all implemented in some sort of fear-mongering stunt. And just to show you even more how suspicious this all is, someone put all this together. So these are 3 different articles about the suspects. 3 different articles. The first 2 are from New Year's Day, and the third one, you'll remember, is one of the Trump assassinators, or the attempted assassinator. And notice how all these different articles highlight one key common thing. So, Fox 5 Las Vegas, a man who died in his Tesla Cybertruck explosion was active duty U.S. Army soldier, officials say. The 3 U.S. officials say Livensberger was an active duty Army member who spent time at a base formerly known as Fort Bragg. Well, funny enough, look what it says in the New York Times. No terrorist to me. Relatives and friends saw a few signs before attack. That's the New Orleans suspect, who was also at Fort Bragg. Here's this guy, Tony Segura, who's pointing out that was the Trump attempted assassinator who was trying to recruit people to Ukraine. He had a full manifesto. He was a never-Trumper. He was very anti-Trump, very kind of pro-establishment type. He also, Ryan Wesley Routh, visited Fort Bragg 147 times. So what is so significant about Fort Bragg that all these attacks came from that same route? It seems very, very interesting. So this woman, Savannah, says there are no coincidences here. Fort Bragg is the home of the Army's Psychological Operations Unit. 3 different men all came out radicalized from this same base. It is known as a fact that the CIA works in conjunction with and recruits from this base. Our enemy is our own. And this guy, Mike Benz, who you may remember from places like Joe Rogan, he's been this kind of media figure sleuth that's been going around telling people how they're misinforming people. So Mike Benz says, we'll never quite get over the fact that 1 year ago, the U.S. Army Psychological Operations Unit out of Fort Bragg essentially claimed U.S. government credit for roughly half a dozen official spontaneous revolutions in the countries all over the world. And he links it to an article here, but I'm going to show you the video of Fort Bragg. This is their training recruitment video to psychologically train these people to become these operatives. And this could be all telling in why these certain individuals are being radicalized to do what they did. So here's just a bit of this video here. Now, I can only play half of the audio and then mute the rest of it because I think there's a copyright infringement on it. So let's just hear some of it.
There is another very important phase of warfare. It has as its target not the body, but the mind of the enemy.
The target of psychological warfare is against the enemy's mind.
It is words and ideas.
The ammunition used by Psywar.
Anything we touch is a weapon.
Its mission is to influence the thoughts of the enemy soldier, and at the same time
is expected and encouraged to study foreign languages and the social sciences such as history, economics, and sociology. He must have a broad and sympathetic understanding of all phases of human experience.
Gripping at my...
Oh, okay, so I guess I should mute it then. I don't want to get copyright strike. We come in many forms. We are everywhere. So this is the video that they played to the recruiters at Fort Bragg. A feeling in the dark. A message in the stars. Wow. Ghosts. In the machine. Psywar. Wow. So, that is a very, very interesting, compelling video there. I don't know if that's the exact realization that they radicalized these people, if that was the exact, kind of film that got them to become, but this is definitely part of this operation, and the fact that all three of these men that committed these attacks came from the exact same military base, the exact same time, and all three of them compelled in different various attacks at different occasions, and two of them on the same day, just different locations. It just seems way too suspicious to think the original story makes any sense. And considering the timing of all this, considering the fact that, as Ian Carroll mentioned, that there is this preemptive measure to get us into war with China, get us into war with Iran, so wouldn't it be convenient if there was some sort of scenario, let's just say, if there was some sort of scenario that scared people towards that direction, scared people enough to advance the war machine, scared people enough to sacrifice more of their liberty, sacrifice more of their freedoms and civil rights to advance the security state, advance the surveillance, advance the war machine. Just like we saw with 9/11, just like we see with other terror attacks. And now it's become more obvious to people, I think, because of social media, because people are aware of this. They can look at this in real time and share this information. Like back in the day, you obviously didn't have Twitter, you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have Instagram. You weren't aware of these videos. Imagine if we had that during 9/11, how much of a different conversation we'd be having. But I think now, because we have lived through this for the last how many years, have we seen all these deep state insider plays, how we've seen the playbook at hand, how people get mind controlled, how there's influences with, these kind of young adult males that are particularly just, cut out of society, and they get swooped up by the deep state, swooped up by federal agents to say, hey, commit these, felons for us, and we'll look the other way. We'll give you some sort of perk. And it seems all too suspicious to think that this is just a random occurrence, that this is a random accident, that some guy who proclaimed himself to be an ISIS agent was able to drive through one of the busiest sections in New Orleans on New Year's Day. And the same incident that happened, the same incident that happened there, that happened with the Cybertruck explosion, and also to the guy that was trying to assassinate Trump at his own golf course, all came from the same military op. All came from the same military base. And no mainstream media outlet really dives into that. No mainstream media outlet will dare to touch the similarities of all this. And as that one lady, Savannah, just said in that tweet, it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. There is something going on that's causing this to happen. And it's just the timing of all of this, considering they're weeks away from inaugurating Trump. Could it be something to do with that? Could it be implementing war with Iran? Anything's possible at this point. But if you believe the original story, if you're believing what you're being told through the mainstream outlets and through corporate news outlets, then I got some vaccines to sell you. Let's just say that. Because this seems way too suspicious for anyone to just believe batting an eye.